This is backed by statute, by legislation which I cannot change. All you have to do is self-certify yourself, come into the state of Telangana, start working, hit the ground running. Simultaneously, on the TSI Pass portal, Kamal and his team can key in the nature of the investment, the quantum of the investment, and whether it's a red, orange, or a green category industry, and how he plans to roll out in a specific time-bound manner. We take only 15 days to give you all clearances, irrespective of how many departments it involves. Sometimes it could involve as many as 30 departments, and sometimes it could be as few as 5 or 6 departments. No matter how many departments are involved, we promise by statute again, by legislation, by law, all clearances in 15 days. Now, if you don't deliver on the 15-day window, on the 16th day, it's an automatic approval. It's a deemed approval. No state in India will tell you this. Also, another thing happens on the 16th day. Not only is it a deemed approval, I have the ability as the minister, as the head of my department, to penalize any bureaucrat who is actually held responsible for any delay beyond the 15-day window to a sum of rupees 1,000 per day. Again, no state in India will tell you this. Last thing I'll tell you, which this policy gives me, the TSI pass, is this policy gives me, empowers me as a minister. If Kamal will share with me the offer he has in terms of fiscal incentives and other things from Karnataka, from Tamil Nadu, from possibly Maharashtra and Andhra, I have the ability and the flexibility through this policy to either meet or beat any of the offers from my competitor. Now, in case you're wondering, this sounds too good to be true, does it actually work, or is this guy just BSing his way through? Let me tell you. In the last 8 years, we have given more than 20,000 clearances. We have been able to attract more than $35 billion of investment. We have been able to create more than 1.6 million direct jobs in Telangana, and the story has just begun. We've barely scratched the same story, narrating the same story to the chairman of KPMG in New York a couple of years ago. I told him, listen, no state in India will tell you this. You might want to promote this to your prospective investors looking at India. He smiled at me and he said, you can go ahead and say this. No state in the United States also will offer you this. So that is the sort of policy. That is the sort of policy that we have made in Telangana, which has truly catapulted us to the top of the league on the ease of doing business rankings. But I know ease of doing business is passé. Ease of doing business is okay. But what matters in today's world, in a competitive world, it's extremely important, is to be able to also lower the cost of doing business and improve the quality of doing business if you want to stay competitive. But I'll come to that in a bit. So the innovation I talk about does not confine itself to just government or one arm of government. Each of us in our individual capacities need to start working on innovation within our processes, and therefore in Telangana today, in Hyderabad today, we have India's largest, in fact the world's largest technology incubator called as T-Hub. We have India's largest prototyping facility called as T-Works. We have, in fact, a world's largest pharma city coming up, world's largest pharma cluster coming up in Hyderabad in about 19,000 acres. Now, why am I throwing around the world's largest, India largest number or the words? The reason being, I know economies of scale are important. If India has to compete with China, we need economies of scale. I remember very vividly when Mr. Piyush Goyal was here a couple of years back. We had a closed-door meeting with All India Medical Devices Manufacturers Association. This was right at the time when COVID started. So we were just interacting, taking questions. One of the leaders from the industry stood up. He said, "Sir, I love your speech, but for me today, it costs lesser to import gloves and masks from China rather than make it completely here. So the transportation cost and everything else, all the import duties, etc., still it is cheaper for me to import than to make in India. So how do I make in India?" Of course, Piyush Goyal gave a very nice speech about nationalistic feelings and a bunch of other things. But what I would recommend CII, and I think all of us together as governments, as state governments, is figure out a way how we can bring about those economies of scale into play, how we can actually compete with the large manufacturing countries like China, like Indonesia, like Malaysia, like Vietnam, how we can stay competitive vis-a-vis the world in terms of quality, also in terms of cost, which I think is the biggest challenge. What do I mean infrastructure? I mean the second I that I mentioned, infrastructure. We not only need good power infrastructure, we need industrial infrastructure, we need water, we need sewerage treatment plants, we need effluent treatment plants, we need zero liquid discharge facilities, we need clean rooms, all the things that are required so that India doesn't again miss out. We missed out on green revolution. We missed out on industrial revolution, the first one. We are not missing out on the digital revolution now that is unleashing and that is unfolding right in front of our eyes. But I think what's even more important is Industry 4.0, Industrial Revolution 4.0, that is likely to unfold right in front of our eyes, and we can't afford to miss this, especially when the world is looking at us with interest. I meet a number of investors who are from overseas. Each of them tells me, my strategy going forward after COVID is China plus one. China for China. This is the mantra that I keep hearing from every single overseas investor that I meet. As the head of stands for inclusive growth. Now let me elaborate. ఉంటారనుకోలేదు అనుకోకుండా మరి కొంత ధైర్యంగా రాసుకున్నాను మీరు ఏమనుకోకపోతే
Now I am a free student. You can talk anything. I am no more engaged.
To the Honorable former Chief Justice of India, Justice Shri N.V. Ramana Garu, to the Southern Region Confederation of Indian Industries Chairperson Srimati Suchitra Ella, to the Vice Chair Shri Kamal Bali, to I'm missing one Jayesh, but there is another Jayesh here. So thank you to the other Jayesh. To all the members of Southern Region CII, I know I'm standing in between you and your lunch. I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. But thank you very much for the honor. Thank you very much for inviting me. Honorable Prime Minister of India, a couple of years ago, had invited all the political parties to a meeting in Delhi, and he had asked us, this was on the 73rd, on the eve of the 73rd Independence Day. He had called all of us, sought our opinions. He said, आगे 2 साल में भारत का 75वां 75th इंडिपेंडेंस होने वाला है. So how do we create a new India model? How do we ensure that the people of India are given a new hope about what is likely to happen in the next 25 years, and what are your opinions? This was the question he put forward to all of us. He said, not only is India completing 75 years, but also Mahatma Gandhi was born exactly 150 years ago, so there can't be a better timing of this. So what do we do? So then, on behalf of my political party and also on behalf of myself, I presented to him a model which I call the 3I mantra. The 3Is that I believe are instrumental in driving India forward, in making India a first world country, and in taking that quantum leap from where we are to where we can be. The first I stands for innovation. The second I stands for infrastructure. The third I stands for inclusive growth. Now let me elaborate a bit on these 3Is. And these 3Is together, the synergies that these 3Is can bring together, is what will make India a truly prosperous and a first world country, is what I personally believe. When I say innovation, a lot of people assume, a lot of people think, because I am Minister for Technology, a lot of people assume that I'm only talking about startups and young Indians. No. I'm talking about innovation in all spheres of life. I'm talking about innovation in all the 4 pillars of democracy. Innovation in legislature, innovation in executive, innovation in judiciary, innovation also in the way the media, the 4th estate of our country, the 4th pillar of democracy, works. When I say innovation in governance, what are the innovations a government can come up with? I can readily think of one innovation which I think is relevant to the audience here, the Confederation of Indian Industry. In 2014, when the new state of Telangana was created, there were lots of doubts, lots of apprehensions around what would happen to the investments in Telangana, particularly in Hyderabad. Because, this state came into being after a long fraught struggle, decades-old struggle, which eventually materialized and became a fructified, agitation in 2014, June 2nd. We had decided as a government that Telangana will top the charts on the ease of doing business rankings. So in terms of the ask, in terms of the vision, the agenda was clear that we have to be on top of the charts. So how do we do it? We went about looking at the best practices across the world, including Singapore, New Zealand, and a bunch of other nations which have excelled in attracting not only investment but also in creating a very, very fair and a very warm and congenial and a welcoming, investment-related policy. Then came in 2014 November the first piece of legislation that we have enacted in the state of Telangana is called as TSI Pass. Now, TSI Pass, for those of you who visited the US or Europe, you would see on the toll gates something called as Easy Pass. So we wanted to make it extremely easy for any investor to come into Telangana and come in with that notion that entering into the state is extremely easy. I'll just give you 3 facets, 3 important features of the TSI Pass. For instance, Mr. Kamal Bali here wanted to open a new Volvo plant in Telangana, and he already has a piece of land. I'm actually indirectly pitching to you, Kamal. I want you to come out of Chennai and actually set up a plant in Bangalore. My apologies. If he had a piece of land, if you had a, say, a 40 or a 50-acre piece of land which is already allotted by the government or privately procured, he actually does not need a permission from the government to start construction of his factory. No other state in India will tell you this. No permission from state government, no permission needed from the local municipality, no permission needed from the local village panchayat. And this is by statute. This is not some minister standing in front of you and giving you his elevator pitch or investment pitch. No. This is backed by statute, by legislation which I cannot change. All you have to do is self-certify yourself, come into the state of Telangana, start working, hit the ground running. Simultaneously, on the TSI Pass portal, Kamal and his team can key in the nature of the investment, the quantum of the investment, and whether it's a red, orange, or a green category industry, and how he plans to roll out in a specific time-bound manner. We take only 15 days to give you all clearances, irrespective of how many departments it involves. Sometimes it could involve as many as 30 departments, and sometimes it could be as few as 5 or 6 departments. No matter how many departments are involved, we promise by statute again, by legislation, by law, all clearances in 15 days. Now, if you don't deliver on the 15-day window, on the 16th day, it's an automatic approval. It's a deemed approval. No state in India will tell you this. Also, another thing happens on the 16th day. Not only is it a deemed approval, I have the ability as the minister, as the head of my department, to penalize any bureaucrat who is actually held responsible for any delay beyond the 15-day window to a sum of rupees 1,000 per day. Again, no state in India will tell you this. Last thing I'll tell you, which this policy gives me, the TSI Pass is, this policy gives me, empowers me as a minister. If Kamal will share with me the offer he has in terms of fiscal incentives and other things from Karnataka, from Tamil Nadu, from possibly Maharashtra and Andhra, I have the ability and the flexibility through this policy to either meet or beat any of the offers from my competitor. That's what TSI Pass is. Now, in case you're wondering, this sounds too good to be true. Does it actually work, or is this guy just BSing his way through? Let me tell you. In the last 8 years, we have given more than 20,000 clearances. We have been able to attract more than $35 billion of investment. We have been able to create more than 1.6 million direct jobs in Telangana, and the story has just begun. We've barely scratched the surface. So when I was gloating and bragging and saying the same story, narrating the same story to the chairman of KPMG in New York a couple of years ago, I told him, listen, no state in India will tell you this. You might want to promote former Chief Justice